Hey there, I'm Vincent Anthony Didiano,
And I am Mike.
and this is
Review the Nerds. So, some of you may be wondering why my face is censored. I was involved in a nasty chemical accident. Got sprayed in the face and it mutilated me. None of you want to see me, trust me. Vincent puked earlier, so it's that bad.
So, just to give you guys a little background information, I'm a local comedian here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But more importantly, for this review, I have been a movie lover my whole life. Totally been a nerdy guy my whole life. You know, Star Trek. A little bit of Star Wars. You know, I'm a huge fan of Doctor Who. Like I said, movies. I mean, hell, I currently work at a movie theater. That's how much I love movies. Where doesn't pay much, but the job's fun.
And my background in geekdom is that when I was growing up, I enjoyed all entertainment, television, and especially movies. I looked at movies as a drug. You know, you had your uppers, your downers, comedies and dramas and fun things. And, to me it was addictive to jump into other worlds and to really get invested in those stories. And I ended up going to school for film. And my favorites are among his favorites as well. You know, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and Doctor Who now. Doctor Who I'm new to.
I got him into Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I take pride in that stuff. I always love when I convert people to something I like.
Yeah, probably the geekest shows before that were Star Trek, X-Files, Supernatural. Love Supernatural.
Oh, good stuff.
But you are the larger Godzilla fan. I think it's very arguable to not even argue that.
I actually remember exactly what got me into Godzilla. I was at home watching TV, real young, and I see this commercial, and I have no idea what the commercial was about. It was so long ago, but it was like a montage of clips of different like TV shows and movies. And one clip was this clip of a giant, like dinosaur-like creature destroying a city. And my dad was there. I was like, "Dad, what's that?" Because and he was like, "Oh, that's Godzilla." And I was like, "What's Godzilla?" Next thing I know, the next day he's taking me to Blockbuster. Oh, Blockbuster, we miss you. Anyway, we go to Blockbuster. I rent Terror of Mechagodzilla. That was the first Godzilla movie I ever saw, which was a sequel to Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. Both are remembered as very, very good Godzilla films, especially because those two helped revitalize the franchise. Because going into the late 60s and early 70s, they had tried to turn Godzilla into a superhero. It made him more kid-friendly, and it was just really hurting the series. Movies like Godzilla vs. Gigan and Godzilla vs. Megalon were some of the worst Godzilla films, and the two movies where he fights Mechagodzilla, which turned into one of their biggest rivals in the franchise, helped revitalize the series. So I was off to a good start, even though I was technically seeing what was at the time probably the 10th or 11th Godzilla film. So, but eventually, of course, I went back, watched the original, which is a classic, and is to this day considered by many Godzilla fans to still be the best. Even though, of course, over the past 6 years, many more Godzilla films have come out, and a lot of them were pretty good. Some of them even really great. And that's my back history on Godzilla. So
he knows his stuff. So my history with Godzilla is much more brief. I just remember seeing some various scenes from some of the older films on TV when I was a child. And really what sums up my memories of Godzilla best would probably be from Jurassic Park: The Lost World at the end when the T-Rex is stomping through the city and there's a group of Japanese people. That was pretty much all my memories about Godzilla, was just Japanese people running and screaming, "Godzilla!"
Well, that is the stereotype.
Yeah.
No, I mean, whenever someone's spoofing Godzilla, there is going to be some Japanese people running and screaming. Yeah. It's a classic way to spoof Godzilla.
But then my actual moment where I actually saw a full Godzilla film that I can recall was the 1998 Roland Emmerich film.
Yeah.
But it was actually commercially successful. It did make back its budget, and it actually did pretty well. And it was just so panned critically and by fans. They were going to do a whole series of movies about this. They actually had sequels planned with Godzilla's children, and they canceled that series.
Yeah, which, you can say the same about this new Godzilla film. Commercially, it did well. $93 million in its opening weekend. That is a great opening weekend mark. That is fantastic. So I'm going to give the movie that.
But the original domestic gross of the 1998 Godzilla, adjusted for inflation, was $231 million. That is actually more than the total domestic gross of the new film, which only made $200.6 million. So actually, the 1998 film was more successful than the new film, financially, at least domestically. Internationally, probably not.
I would assume back in Japan that people were raiding the movie theaters and burning the copies.
What's funny is I think that people actually enjoyed the Godzilla animated series more than they enjoyed the 1998 movie.
Better than the movie, because at least Godzilla could fight in that.
I think the Japanese movies actually incorporated him into their mythology, but they just called him Zilla. They didn't call him Godzilla.
That is true. What happened with that movie was Toho, the company that owns Godzilla, that has been making Godzilla films for like 60 years now. They gave them the rights to make that film back in the late 90s. And of course, as we all know, that film is not well remembered, and for good reason. So they got so angry that eventually they bought the rights to the American version of Godzilla, the 1998 version, and legally changed his name to Zilla. That Godzilla, he actually was in another movie. He actually appeared, he had a reappearance in the last Japanese-made Godzilla movie, Godzilla Final Wars, where, without spoiling the plot, Godzilla basically fights every giant monster that Toho, almost every giant monster that they own the rights to. In fact, and the first one he goes against Gigan, and then the second one he goes against is his American counterpart, and he beats the fucking shit out of him.
My other exposure to Godzilla after this new film came out is that Vincent had me watch a couple of the older films, and I watched the original 1954 film.
You watched you watched Godzilla King of Monsters with the American footage edited in. We did not actually watch the purely Japanese version. Watched it a few days ago because I hadn't seen it in years. Good. It's of course it's dated, and of course by today's standards, special effects are horrible. Back in the day, that was, they actually did quite a lot with that film back in the day.
Yeah. They used some old school techniques to include that white guy with a bunch of screaming Japanese people. And also some really interesting dubbing. But, I will say, segueing into this new film, that I think they did a better job establishing Godzilla. And also Godzilla actually was a central character in that film. So that's already given you an idea of how I feel about this new film.
Yeah, the shit's about to hit the fan. The radioactive shit is about to hit the fan, because... Yeah, let's just get into it. I don't want to go back.
So your initial impressions about the film. How did you feel about the initial news of it being?
When it was announced like a couple years ago, they were going to do another one. I was totally conflicted. I was excited at the same time that they were going to take another shot, but also fearful at the same time that once again they just weren't going to get it right, because it's the first Godzilla movie in years now. But hopefully that they learn from their mistakes. Because what was wrong with the 98 one, it was a lighthearted action-adventure kind of comedy. This one, they take things seriously.
Very seriously.
Yes.
No laughs in this film. Laughs aren't allowed. They're illegal in this film. They're obscured by fog. Now, the first thing I saw that really got me excited for the film was that first teaser, which showcased the halo jump. They're falling down and they see Godzilla through the masks. That made great use of music and visuals, and the music was actually from George Ligeti's Requiem, which was also used in Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. But I thought it was very cool way to introduce the concept in the teaser. I mean,
Yeah. For those of you know what a halo jump is, that's when you parachute out of a plane like 30,000 feet or higher.
Yeah.
That was definitely a cool part of the trailer, because because they're descending through a thunderstorm in the trailer through the halo jump, and it's like symbolically they're descending into the depths of hell, because that's what's going on. We have two gigantic creatures battling in the city as we see them. You see him in smoke, or you see Godzilla barely. They kept Godzilla's full form disguised for a very long time. Very long time. It wasn't until the second trailer that came out only a little while before the movie, where you actually finally see Godzilla's head and face and his arms, which, when I finally saw what he looks like, it made me feel a lot better. I was like, okay, that looks like a modern day Godzilla. He looks like Godzilla. Yeah, so it made me feel a hell of a lot better just knowing at least they got a proper look down.
Now, the theatrical trailers that followed were a bit misleading because they placed so much focus on Bryan Cranston and Godzilla that many other cast members were overshadowed, including Aaron Taylor Johnson, who is actually the star of the film.
Kick ass.
Yeah, you gotta love Kick-Ass. And, I'm actually a fan of his work, but in this film, I don't think he turns in his best performance, but we'll get to that later. I blame a lot of other factors. He himself, I think, is a really good actor. I've seen him do good work, not only in Kick-Ass, but also in a film called Nowhere Boy, which chronicles the early teen years of John Lennon. But he was not promoted to be the star of this film. It was Bryan Cranston who's promoted to be the star of the film. I know what's going on here, and I'm the most important character in this movie. Listen to me. Even though, as it turns out, I'm barely in this movie. I mean, it's such a shame because this movie really could have benefited from having more Bryan Cranston in it. And you didn't even see the Mutos too much in the trailers either, did you?
Well, there was a reason for that. The thing was, because Toho, the company that owns the rights to Godzilla, did not forget about the 1998 one, as we discussed their feelings on that one, they only gave the studio the rights to Godzilla. They said, and that was one of the big selling points in this movie, that they announced really early on that Godzilla would be fighting other monsters. But the Toho was like, we're not giving you any of the other monsters. You can use Godzilla, but we're not going to risk you screwing up any of our other guys since we don't know what you're going to do with them. So they actually kept the identities of the monsters a secret for a while. A lot of people theorized that one of the creatures in it was going to be Rodan, the giant pterodactyl monster that can fly at supersonic speeds due to trailers of seeing a giant winged creature crashing into the ocean. Which I was kind of excited. I was like, okay, you're bringing in Godzilla and Rodan? And we didn't get Rodan. We got these new monsters that are called Mutos, and we'll explain the origin of their name as we go through the movie. The studio and producers decide to hire a relatively unknown director in Gareth Edwards, whose experience prior to this involved a documentary, a short film, and then a movie called Monsters, which is about tentacled monsters, hence the title. I assume that's what got him the job. But he doesn't have a huge background in summer tentpole movies. And that's actually a new trend that's happening in Hollywood right now, where they're hiring a lot of directors that come from little experience. And in some regards, I'm going to argue that it kind of shows. This movie, better than the 98 one. I want to throw that out there real quick.
Yes.
It is superior, because I said earlier, they take it seriously.
Yes.
It's not, I wouldn't call it a horrible film. It definitely disappointed the hell out of me. It could have been so much better, and we'll go over more why.
Even though we're trashing this movie, there is things about it that are good. And obviously there was passion in this movie, which I don't think Roland Emmerich, I'd be surprised if Roland Emmerich even saw a Godzilla film before he did that 1998 movie. It didn't seem like he did, at least. Whereas Gareth Edwards, it does seem like there's a passion for the character.
Yeah, I agree with Roland Emmerich in that piss poor Godzilla with Schumacher and the bat nipples. To me, they are akin.
Yeah. I mean, say what you want about Gareth Edwards' Godzilla film. I mean, there's a lot of problems. But I think, though, that we can see a passion in the film for it. But yeah, so anyways, back to trashing it.
Credits rolling, montage footage of what appears to be 1950s era battleships and just guys in uniforms of that era, and you see kind of Godzilla. You don't completely see Godzilla. You mostly see the spines on his back in the ocean as he's swimming along. It's cool. I'm being okay, this is cool.
It makes you okay, this is a Godzilla movie.
Yeah, I was okay, so far it's kind of cool. And it shows you all this footage of some secret organization called Monarch. They're called the Monarch Project. He's coming up, and I'm like, Monarch. I'm thinking, wait, Monarch Butterfly. Is that a hint of Mothra? Is Mothra going to make an appearance in this film? I was getting a little excited. I was like, okay, are we getting Rodan and Mothra? Are we getting two more legendary kaiju in this film? I was like, fuck yeah, let's do it.
If you actually had seen the 1998 film recently, incredibly similar to their opening credits. They had credits of nuclear test footage. We should also mention that the character of Godzilla was heavily influenced from this time of nuclear testing, not too long after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and it's from the fears of what nuclear testing and radiation can do to our environment and the world around us. There was definitely a lot of paranoia around that time, and for good reason.
Yeah. So the opening montage ends with them setting off a nuclear bomb that has Godzilla's face painted on the side because I guess they took the time to do that. There was always one guy on like the commando team who was an artist back home.
So the movie opens with a helicopter flying over the Philippines towards a mining site. On board, we are introduced to Ken Watanabe. But Ken Watanabe's character, we should mention his name is Dr. Ishiro Serizawa.
Yes.
And his first name is from the director of the original film, Ishiro Honda.
Yes, and his last name, Serizawa, is in reference to Dr. Serizawa from the original film, name of the recluse scientist who creates the oxygen destroyer, the device that kills the original Godzilla in the original Godzilla film. So they're throwing little tidbits in there, throwing little shout-outs to the original franchise. Want to respect Godzilla. So I'm sorry.
It's cool. It's cool. You have a passion. That's the first of many little things. If you really keep your eye out, there's a whole bunch of little things in this movie that are callbacks. And I think one of the better things about the film is it does pay tribute in a lot of ways. But then we have this scientist character, Dr. Serizawa. He is at this mining facility, and they've discovered something while mining.
Yeah, the whole friggin' valley has caved in. They were mining something, so they put on, but there's radiation. You're like, oh, radiation. All right, we're going to get right into Godzilla. They put on, we next thing they're underground in some kind of like cavern. They got radiation suits on, and we like see the remains of some big creature. Not sure what it is.
That was actually really cool.
Yeah, that was cool. They got these big like bones. I mean, this thing is huge. It was like if they're building this up. They're like, oh, we're just seeing like a dead monster. I'm getting more excited for the living monsters coming. And they come down to like the end of the corpse, and they see these two like pods or like things. One's still there. One's like looks like it's been broken open, and they establish like
something's out there.
Yeah, whatever killed this creature must have been these two like spores or pods, whatever the fuck they are. And they're like, and then someone's like, "Come look at this!" And so it's like that extra guy. He's like the red shirt on Star Trek. He's probably gonna die. We don't fucking know. So they keep going, and then you see like they find whatever it was that came out of that pod burrowed out, and there's this huge hole in the valley, and there's this huge like through the trees. This tree's like knocked over this huge path like into the ocean, and I'm getting even more excited. I'm like, okay, what is this? Is it Mothra? Did Mothra just get born? Are we gonna see Caterpillar Mothra?
Oh, no such luck, Vincent. If you came to this movie to see Mothra, you'll be sorely disappointed because Mothra is just an insect in a boy's cage.
Kid Ford. That's
Kid Ford.
Sounds like some kind of action hero sidekick. Kid Ford.
Anyways, but now we move into what city was it?
Janjira,
where we meet our main character as a boy, but more interesting, his father, played by Bryan Cranston, who is a complete scene stealer. Because he's the only one in this movie, aside from Elizabeth Olsen, that brings his A game.
We're just going to put this up ahead. We'll get into detail later. But Bryan Cranston brought the Cranston. There are some actors in the film who did not do as well as they could. I don't know whether they just weren't putting their all into it, or the director wasn't guiding them in the right direction. But Bryan Cranston was hands down the best.
Every moment he was in, it seemed like he was just bringing everything he had in him. Trying to make the best of, maybe not so great.
Taking the energy he's got going off of Breaking Bad and bringing it into this, right?
The Heisenberg.
Yeah. So we're in Japan with, watching
Child 4.
Yeah, watching Keeping Up with the Cranstons and
Malcolm in the Middle, the sequel, could be as well. This could be what happens to Malcolm. His dad gets a job working in a power plant in Japan, and he ends up becoming Aaron Johnson. And
becomes Kick-Ass.
Yeah. They had this whole banner that the kid made for his dad. They made kind of a
Happy
fuss
birthday,
about
Daddy. The reason why he doesn't get to say happy birthday to Bryan Cranston like his son and his wife is because Bryan Cranston apparently is in charge of running this nuclear power plant in Janjira, Japan. Apparently there's something going on. He's on the phone with like the chairman of the board, or how does that game even run? I don't know. But
I don't know.
Yeah. So he's like, I don't want to be like the American idiot who got this wrong. So like they jump in the kid jumps on the Japanese school bus, and him and the wife are talking. Juliette Binoche. I'm getting that wrong.
I'm not sure.
She's French, I think, or I'm stupid. Could be both. I could still be stupid and she could still be French.
I could be stupid and she still could be French.
Yeah.
We have some very nice scenes with Bryan Cranston. I'd say the most emotional scenes in the entire film, also the ones that make you care the most about somebody. You really get a feel for his love for his family and his wife. Once you realize how little Cranston really is in this, it feels more empty because you're like, you're making me care so much for this character right now.
So they go to the nuclear power plant. He tells her right away, don't even worry. Don't wait for me to talk to the big heads. go down to the reactor, go check it out. I'm going to go to the control room. And they're in there, and they find out there's some kind of seismic activity happening. Not an earthquake. Earthquakes, boom, come out of nowhere. This one is like something that they've been able to track, and it keeps on building and building. Next thing you know, the alarms go off. This place is like blasting. Bryan Cranston has to run downstairs, and he gets his wife on the radio, like, get the fuck out of there! Get out of there! The place is online. There's this radioactive cloud that's pouring out of the reactor. The cloud is chasing them down the hallway.
Yeah.
The cloud itself could be a monster, symbolically.
These are some of my favorite moments in the movie. More than any other scene in the movie, I was probably more than the edge of my seat during this. And, I feel genuine peril here for everybody. I feel really engaged. A great buildup of tension. Because that something's about to happen. You just want his wife to make it. You're like, make it. And, those damn doors have to close. And, he lets out that big scream, hits the door, the
he's
button.
Crying. He's dying, man. You see his soul tear out of his eyes right there.
He even does a little caress over the walkie as she's talking to him through the walkie.
Yeah.
At one point.
Yeah.
More caressing. There's a lot of caressing in this movie,
Yeah, there's a lot of inanimate objects getting caressed.
There's a lot of objects getting caressed. Anyways, the thing with Cranston is that he's so good, but he's almost too good for this movie, I think, because he brings it so much, and I feel like, no other cast members later on really bring it the way he brought it. And tonally, it's kind of confusing, because he's bringing a Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan A-game of drama acting. And no one else comes to that level.
Last image of the opening is young Ford Brody. By the way, that's the family's last name.
Ford Brody.
I like Ford. I like Brody. But not together. It's like a fruit cake. Fruit good, cake good. As another comedian has put them together.
What's funny to me is that the director of the original film is Ishiro Honda. There's a lot of car brands here. We got Honda, and this time we got Ford. We just found the tie. We found the bridge.
We did. Honda and Ford are coming out with a hybrid car soon.
There you go.
But
the last image we see is Kid Ford watching as his father, his parents, the power plant his parents work at is collapsing on itself. How the does Bryan Cranston, survive? Because that was a massive.
True.
That was a massive collapse.
He stays into that. He stays downstairs in the reactor right until his wife can't make it, and then the place starts crumbling, and he gets out of there. I don't know if he has a secret passage or he ran down a sewage pipe that goes out into the river.
You mean a tunnel from Skyfall? They just have a convenient tunnel that gets them out of harm's way.
Tunnels are always convenient. Where the plot is right now, we're in 1999, and the movie picks up in modern time. They skip ahead. It's 2014.
Yes, we jumped ahead 15 years.
Manford.
Manford. That sounds like a porn name.
Aaron Taylor Johnson has now appeared as the adult version of the son from the previous scene. And now he's in the military or something. He's just getting off a plane.
I believe he's supposed to be in the Navy.
He's growing up to be a badass, an American hero, G.I. Joe.
Of course, because you need to find a contrived reason to include him in every single major monster attack in this film, and that is your way.
He's all grown up. Apparently, he just got off a tour of duty of 14 months. That's a lot. So right off the bat, we're establishing this guy's giving a lot for his country. It helps you. It right off the bat gives you something a little more to like the character. Because he's a soldier.
Which I have to say, I have respect for the military, but it's pretty cliche to have a main character be in the military in a movie like this.
We meet Elizabeth Olsen's character, Elle. She's only in the film. Very few scenes. But she does her job.
How sad is that all the things that really make this movie good are in it for such a brief period of time?
Yes.
You got Bryan Cranston, Godzilla, and Elizabeth Olsen, but they're in it so little. Come on.
Yeah.
I will say that Elizabeth Olsen upped his game a little bit. Aaron Johnson, I could tell that he was having good chemistry with her.
I was because he meets his family, and apparently it's his birthday now. Ooh, little transition. Now he's dad now, so now it's his birthday. So they have that, and they got a birthday cake, and we meet their son Sam, who the kid actually doesn't have a lot to do with the movie. They really didn't.
Yeah,
that kid, he was an extra character. Just once again, if the son doesn't play that big of a role except to just be their child, then they're just using it as a reason to make you care more about Aaron John's character. He's got a wife and a son, and.
Which again feels very kind of artificial, like, we're going to give you these very basic reasons to care about Aaron Johnson. We're not going to make you care about Aaron Johnson based on who he is as a person. We're going to make you care about him based on the fact that he has a child and a wife waiting at home.
Yeah, I guess good that they have good chemistry considering they're playing
brother and sister in Avengers 2, Age of Ultron.
Yeah, which some people are getting a little oohed out by the fact that they're husband and wife in this film, and in this film that's coming out in a year from now, that they're brother and sister. People are like, ew, but whatever. All right, because you want to hear something really nasty? In the Marvel Comics, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch actually were in a relationship at one point. Yeah, Marvel.
Ooh, incest.
Yes, Marvel dabbled in incest. They're like, well, X-Men doesn't have enough interesting things going on. Let's throw in some incest. They put the kid to bed, and then, they haven't seen each other in 14 months. Their husband and wife, they're going to enjoy each other's bodies. It's time to get Candace and Lindy, a little bit of red wine. Elizabeth Holston, she's just wearing
This must be the only movie where she's not naked. She's naked in a lot of movies.
And then they get
And then they get cock-blocked by his dad, who just got arrested in Japan.
The Japanese government calls, or like the consulate calls him up, and they're like, yeah, your dad has been arrested for entering into the quarantine zone. Because the entire city of Janjiro, where they had the power plant, cordoned off. The entire city blocked off, like they got fences and military, because they're claiming that the entire city has been has radioactive fallout, and if you go into the city, you will die. Which we are to find out is not the case. Apparently, him and his dad really haven't spoken much.
Oh God! How many times have you heard that story in these type of movies?
Yeah. I'm friends with my dad because he's gone nutty, only to find out that he's not really.
There is a really funny line though that it's a very stupid funny line that Olsen has. It's not the end of the world.
Oh yeah!
Come on, foreshadow.
She says it right to Ford before he goes to Japan. That was just for shits and giggles and shits. So Kick-Ass picks up Walter White, and they go back to Cranston's apartment, which is of course a mess because apparently he's been spending the past 15. He spent like the first 6 years sulking, and then the following years theorizing in conspiracy theory that what actually happened at the power plant, and
your standard dad nervous breakdown, having a bunch of newspaper articles and maps spread all over his walls,
and son not wanting to hear it anymore. Why can't we just move on with our lives?
And all the lived-in garbage space are on the floor and stuff.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, the thing is that set is very, very detailed, but the problem is we've seen it so many times.
Yeah.
They set it up when he was coming off the plane that he was in the military, but now they're setting up that he is an EOD expert.
EOD, explosive ordnance disposal. Basically, he's Hurt Locker. He takes care of bombs.
And he tells his dad this, and clearly telling the audience. So in case you guys are wondering why he is in virtually every military scene, it's because he is the only person that can do this because he is the best at what he does. But what he does isn't very nice. That's Wolverine.
That is Wolverine.
They're foreshadowing it, by bringing it up.
Yeah.
You know it's going to be important later. If you have a character tell you that he defuses bombs for a living, you know what's going to happen. There's going to be a bomb that's going to need diffused. And they do this a lot in these type of movies where you skip ahead like 10, 15 years. Characters don't age. Obviously Kick-Ass aged, but Bryan Cranston
aged beautifully.
He got a new wig though. He's got a longer bang wig.
Yeah, he got one because he hadn't had his haircut in 15 years, so it grew.
Yeah. So the wig is just as bad though. Both are just as bad.
Which is not Bryan Cranston's fault. We cannot blame Bryan Cranston for the wig.
Bryan Cranston is more than just a wig.
Yes, he has evolved beyond the wig.
Yes, he is a force of nature.
Yes, much like Godzilla. Kick-Ass tries to tell his dad,
"Come back home, Dad."
Yeah, come back home. Your grandson hasn't seen you, and have you I don't know, has he even met him? I would have been like, have you even met your grandson? You piece of shit father. No,
he is clearly not let go of this whole thing. He is still obsessed with going back. His wife is still there. She'll always be there in his mind. And he wants to know why she died. For what reason?
Yeah. You can't run from this, son. You can't run from this.
Yeah. So he basically convinces his son to go into a very dangerous area.
Which I saw that was way too quick. You guys were just in a heated argument last night, and literally after 3 minutes, you're like, okay, Dad, you got a point. We'll go into the quarantine zone, possibly get arrested or die from.
I think he's hoping that if they go there, his dad will see that he's been crazy all along and let it go.
I would have let it go. I would have let his ass go right there. I was like, I got a beautiful, gorgeous, loving, caring, sweet wife and a little boy, and I'm in the military. My life's pretty good right now. Yeah. I would have been like, all right, Dad, I'm going home. Here's your plane ticket. if I don't see you at the airport in an hour, I'm busting out here.
Indeed.
That would have been enough to convince me.
It was a bit fast, but they're
Yeah.
trying to hurry up and get rid of Bryan Cranston because, like, why would we want to keep him around? I mean, he is only one of the greatest actors of his generation, but so what?
Yeah.
So, anyways,
Foreshadow.
so then we're back at what's the name of the city? I always mispronounce it.
Janjira.
Janjira.
Do I have to do all the translation for this?
You might have to.
Janjira. Gojira. And Giris.
There you
Gingira.
Cool little evacuated scenery. I mean, the whole city being evacuated.
Yeah, there's like plants growing all over the buildings,
Yeah.
and the streets are dirty. And there's wild, ravenous dogs running down the streets.
Yeah, nice little scenery environment.
And they're covered up in like makeshift radiation suits. Like it's not like the gloves are duct taped down, so they don't. Like, where are you getting this? You could buy materials that would protect you, but you couldn't get like a proper ceiling thing going on.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they're in the town, and
yeah, which is, by the way, nicely done visually. I think it looks cool. I'm on board. Joe, just looking at his Geiger, I guess it's a little Geiger reader,
You take it. I was about to
and
say,
he's
but-
like, "This must be accurate. I'm just gonna take off a mask and risk dying horribly." I mean, like, what if it was malfunctioning? Bryan Cranston,
Yes.
not your fault. Joe, character Joe. What if it was malfunctioning?
He had faith in Japanese electronics.
And you take it off. He's like, seems okay.
It reminds me of Galaxy Quest when
That's what I was thinking.
they come off the
Yeah.
space shuttle and they're like, "Is there air? You don't know." Seems fine to me. Like,
Yeah. And you really are so confident that your Geiger meter is not malfunctioning. You're willing
Yeah.
to put your son at risk of dangerous levels of radiation. I was almost waiting for
I
there
think he
to
was
be.
already kind of putting his son at risk by having their house like next door to a nuclear power plant. I think we're past that.
He works there. It's more convenient. It doesn't take as long to get to work. He cuts through traffic. I was expecting like someone to do a parody of that where he takes off his mask and then 10 minutes later and they're just like throwing their guts out of their mouths and dying horribly. Why did we take our masks off? Ah!
Yeah, so they go back to their house that they were in when back in 1999, and the place is trash. It's all covered in dirt, and like the windows are like blown in and stuff like that. And we see cool little tidbits that you catch. I'm like, actually, this is something that you catch before in the beginning of the movie when they're in the house before the accident. Is this a cool little thing that Ford, as a kid, had like a kaiju poster, some kind of like giant monster movie. Little cool little thing. But yeah, now that we go back in the house, we see like he had like kind of like a glass tank where he was keeping, I guess, like
Some kind of insect.
Yeah, insects or something, and it says Mothra on the side.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's like cool little throws. Once again, between the monarch symbol and Mothra, like for their movie that doesn't feature Mothra, they should have a lot of shout outs to Mothra in this film.
More photo caressing by Bryan Cranston.
Oh yeah, he finds a photo of his wife because they had to leave before they could grab anything. Yeah.
There's a lot of caressing in this movie. Enough foreplay. Okay, I'm saying enough foreplay. Somebody just grab something and do this.
Foreplay? Don't you mean Ford play?
Oh, wow.
Oh god, that was horrible, but I enjoyed it.
Joe wants to collect data that will support his whole theory.
Floppy disks, because it was 1999, of data from the day the accident happened, because he wants to prove this wasn't some natural disaster like the government says, that something killed my wife!
Yeah, that's the scene that's coming up.
That's the scene coming up, and I reenacted it very accurately.
So they then go outside.
Yes, some soldiers catch them up, and they take them, and... I don't know. You don't know. All the soldiers, they have like masks on, like anti-radiation breathing mask on. But like, why do they have the mask on? They already know there's no radiation. Why? Why put the mask on? That's something that confused me.
Maybe
All
they're
right?
hoping
They all look like the killer from Bloody Valentine.
They were hoping to keep up appearances. They want to keep up appearances. And then when they saw, I'm sure the first thing they thought when they saw Joe and Ford is they're like, oh shit.
Americans.
I went through all this trouble to put this down.
Oh shit, Americans.
Do you have any idea how long it takes to put on these stupid containment suits? You guys had me waste an hour of my morning. All I want to do is take a shower.
And I get very sweaty in these things, so I have to like put on deodorant and like put some baby powder on my body so I don't get all sweaty.
Then we come to the interrogation room scene.
Yeah,
and we get every major bit of dialogue that's in the trailers of Bryan Cranston.
Yes. Send us back to the Stone Age.
You have no
idea.
idea.
Flintstones.
You have no idea. No idea what's coming. So at this point, I knew that Joe is not long for this world because we're seeing every single scene of his that was in the trailer. So I'm like, okay, I don't remember any other scenes in the trailers that he's in.
You're wondering what's going to happen.
Yeah, we're like, oh, okay.
All of a sudden, shit starts going down. Lights start flickering, and we find out that whatever that creature was that burst out of the pod earlier in the movie cocooned itself around the nuclear reactors, has been absorbing the radiation. And apparently this thing is about to wake up. It's done metamorphosizing. Lights are going off, flashing like, we're in a club and strobe lights are hitting. And the monster finally bursts out. And we're like, what is it? What is it? Oh my god, let me see it. Is it Mothra? Can it be Mothra? Stop. Why do you gotta crush my dreams?
Mothra, are you crazy? God, that's almost as crazy as thinking it would be Godzilla in a movie called Godzilla, When you saw the cocoon, you knew it wasn't going to be Godzilla. But for the first 40 minutes of the movie, before we saw this cocoon, I was like, they have to be spending all this time setting up Godzilla. Who else would they be setting up in a movie called Godzilla, right?
Yeah, no, and it's not. That's not the king.
Am I in the right movie? So then the Muto Mothra-esque creature bursts out of its cocoon. It figures now is as good a time as any.
Drank this nuclear reactor dry, it's good, but you know what? I need something new. I want to go see the world.
Why the hell didn't they put more effort into containing this thing? Why didn't they consider killing it before it burst? Clearly it's a threat. They're like, no, we must study it. It's like, okay, well, if you're going to study it, then at least put it into a much more better confined thing than a bunch of cables that are electrified overhead.
They're like, oh, crap. Well, we can't let it go, so they try to send off, they blast it with electricity, which I don't... How did that even work? It wasn't like they shot it with giant tasers. No, they put this huge wire net thing above the cocoon, and electricity blasts out of it like they're electric laser beams or something. Yeah. That's not how it works, all right?
Well, so you have no basis for comparison on how to execute one of these things. You should go full blown, go full gun, because you don't know what level of destruction you need to have to kill this thing. So I say, you just freaking evacuate everybody and nuke it right there. Especially in an area that's supposed to be quarantined anyways. We have what they call a Muto.
Massive unidentified terrestrial organism.
And we get our first scene of darkness and fog concealing a creature in this film, which almost becomes a visual running gag.
It's this weird, giant claw arm creature. So it's not Mothra. Anyway, it starts tearing up the place. Cranes are getting knocked over. The wires are getting, ripped. People are running and screaming. People are getting stomped on and shit like that. Kick-Ass breaks out. He's running around whoa, what's going on?
And for some reason, he puts on a gas mask.
Yeah, I don't know. But then, Bryan Cranston's running and forward! And then, boom, a crane falls on the bridge that Bryan Cranston is on and gets severely injured. And that was a bullshit thing. We think... Because you see him in the next thing, he's on a stretcher. You're like, okay, he's messed up.
Yeah, they made me think he was going to make it for a second. I was like, thank God.
And then he's dead 2 minutes later. They just zip him up in a large Ziploc bag, and he's dead.
Now, this is the turning point in the movie for me. This is when my emotional investment just died. The one character that I cared about, the one character that had very clear motivation that I could relate to, and the one that seemed to have the most, determined kind of arc, you get rid of him. And then we're left with people that have really one-dimensional motivations. And Kick-Ass, who seems to care more about involving himself in every single military venture in this film rather than saving his own family. I don't understand him. I understood Bryan Cranston's Joe. I understood Joe. I was with Joe. I was like, Joe, you're my dude. You're my dude. You're my way in. And
I mean, when Bryan Cranston, right before he dies, he tells us, take care of your family. At any cost.
Yeah,
and as the film goes on, Aaron Taylor Johnson tries to use his military connections to get back to his family, but at the same time keeps getting caught up in the military to take care of the monsters.
Ford, you just pissed over your dead father's body.
Yeah. So now Ford's on the USS Saratoga, an American aircraft carrier. Dr. Sarazawa, Ken Watanabe, brings him on board, and he's like, you need to tell us anything your father might have said. Yeah. And they explain Godzilla's backstory. Now, this whole 40 minutes has been setting up the background and what this evil, this new monster that they've created for the film for Godzilla to fight. And we still have not seen Godzilla. We've only seen him in small clips of footage from the 50s. And they explain that what these creatures are, they're primordial creatures that existed on the planet before our atmosphere completely formed.
They evolved on the planet's surface during a time when radiation was very heavy in the atmosphere, and then when the radiation began to dissipate, they burrowed deeper into the planet.
Where they fed off radiation from the planet's core, which I actually liked the new backstory for the monsters.
I actually do feel, that does work as well. I mean, because it does have a basis in nature. There was a time a few billion years ago when there were organisms that were actually living off of sulfate. And when the Great Oxygen Event happened, or whatever they call it, and you began to have oxygen-breathing organisms, the organisms that had evolved off of sulfate mostly died out. That's kind of what happened to the Mutos and Godzilla. They had to burrow in to survive. And then, of course, when they resurface on our planet, modern day, they need to get that radiation.
Which is better than the 98, was 91 basically reused the original.
Yeah.
Except it seemed like they made it look like it was some kind of iguana that mutated. Yeah. Whereas at least in the original Godzilla, it's some kind of unknown species of dinosaur where we don't know its physiology. We have no idea. It's some kind of like middle evolution dinosaur thing that survives. So we don't know what it is capable of to begin with. Where this one is like, it's an iguana that spent the last 50 years.
Yeah, because they even had that shot in the 1988 movie of the iguana like, oh, when the nuclear bomb goes off. In their film, which is, Godzilla is completely created from those nuclear tests.
At least this time, they are primordial creatures that we know very little about. They explain that Godzilla, due to nuclear tests in the 1950s, emerged from the deep depths of the ocean because, there's radiation on the surface again. So apparently he's going up to and that's how the Monarch Organization gets founded. And they studied the creature for a while, and then we found out that several of the nuclear tests that happened in the 50s were actually attempts to kill Godzilla. But apparently the nuclear bombs did not kill him. I'm guessing he just absorbed radiation like his body naturally does.
I mean, it makes sense. Yeah. So I'm on board with that. What I'm not on board with is cramming it into a 3-minute spoon-fed exposition scene instead of actually showing us something. The Mutos, they showed us a lot of build-up for those Mutos, who were totally made up for this movie. They have no basis in the original films.
Yeah, once again, Godzilla hasn't popped up yet.
We call him
Godzilla. Yes, that's one of Ken Watanabe's big moments in the film where he's like, Godzilla.
He loves playing up saying Godzilla. He's like...
You can tell. He had a little bit of fun with it. He's not trying to, give a bad performance, but he's having fun with it. He's, egging it up. I think they're really going to detail why we haven't seen Godzilla since the 50s. Are we just supposed to assume that after the bomb...
I think he kind of peeked out. He looked around. He's like, you guys are assholes.
Yeah.
You're shooting bombs at my head.
Yeah,
I'm going to go back down.
On? The surface is... the radiation's nice, but...
It's too hostile up here. You guys are hostile.
Yeah.
I'm going back down.
It's still weird that he waited I guess, but if you're a creature from the depths and if you've waited a few million years, I guess you can wait 60 more years. So maybe I'm being nitpicky.
Godzilla was originally going to have been preserved in a Siberian glacier. And... they changed it when Man of Steel came out, and there was a scene similar when a Kryptonian ship was found. And I almost wonder if, they rewrote the whole thing to focus on the introduction of the Mutos because of that.
That could work, too, because in the original series, in Godzilla's second movie, Godzilla raids again. At the end of the movie, they stop Godzilla by causing an avalanche and trapping him in a glacier. So that is also a callback to one of the older films.
And maybe that would have been a better direction to go in.
That could have been.
And this is the introduction of Dr. Serizawa's brilliant theory that he has absolutely zero backup to support. Is that Godzilla is here to return balance.
Restore balance.
Restore balance. Let them fight. That's later.
Yeah, they say Godzilla is actually an alpha predator, and that he might reemerge because they think the Mutos were his natural prey or something.
There is zero.
Not really.
Backup to support what he's saying. Absolutely none. It's how the hell do you know that, man? You have no idea. These creatures have been dormant.
I think the audience is just supposed to accept the fact that this has apparently been his job his entire life, and that no one studied this creature more than him.
But what, did he do a mind meld? A Vulcan mind meld with him and find out what he was thinking?
By the way, don't ever psychically link with Godzilla. That happened in the 1980s. It was Godzilla vs. Biollante, where a recurring character in the franchise tries to link psychically with Godzilla, and she gets knocked on her psychic ass. So don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah. Well, later I understand why he says it, but to say it this early, no way.
So we move on to Kick-Ass Hurt Locker. He catches a helicopter to Hawaii.
And of course he gets placed in the city it's about to be attacked.
Yeah, he goes to Hawaii to catch it. But quick thing we forgot to mention about the Mutos earlier. They, the one Muto that's shown up, it produces an electromagnetic pulse that takes out all electrical equipment, which becomes a major factor. So it's a major plot device used in the film.
Which, by the way, like, why would he have that as defense mechanism?
Yeah, I was wondering that too. Like, what purpose can electromagnetic
Because
pulse serve?
Yeah, because evolution, whenever a creature evolves to have a
nature.
defense mechanism,
Yeah.
it's because there's a predator that it's protecting itself against. But what could an EMP do to protect a giant creature like this millions of years ago in its natural habitat? I'm pretty sure they didn't have any technology back then, so why would it evolve to be able to defend itself against technology? Also, I'm pretty sure that Guillermo del Toro already explored kaijus having EMP powers in his movie Pacific Rim. And you know, he almost uses the EMP, the Mutos, they almost use it as though they know it's going to hurt us.
Yeah.
I guess we can suck it up, though, because they are creatures of radiation. Maybe, you know, they could naturally have developed it, I guess. But it just seems very kind of plot devicey.
He hops out of a helicopter to Hawaii. He gets
By
on a
Muto.
monorail. That sucks. And some kid gets separated from his mom and dad, and don't worry, I'll get him on the next monorail back. The kid serves no purpose except for to like save, and he doesn't really save a lot of people throughout the course of the film. In fact, people really die. Everybody dies around this guy.
It just seems like there is more going on with him saving this kid than ever with his own family.
And the military is tracking the monster, which by the way it can fly. It's got like these insect-like wings. It's like them trying to be Mothra, which apparently Mothra's going to be in the next film anyway. So stink on them.
It is on the shore of Hawaii, and it's eating a submarine missile.
Yeah, it scooped up a Russian submarine right out of the water, like it's a seagull getting fish or something, and it scoops it up, and like it's eating the nuclear reactor. And the military comes in, and they find it, and oddly enough, these Mutos, we're going to bring this up right now, they are surprisingly stealthy for giant monsters. Like, seriously, the commandos are going through the jungles of Hawaii looking for this submarine. They've got helicopters flying overhead with searchlights, and they find the giant Russian submarine is covered in, like, the Muto's, like, spit or something. It's covered, like, in this slime from the Muto, and then the Muto is, like, comes up from behind the submarine, but the Muto's the same size as the submarine. It should be able to hide behind that thing.
I have a theory about this, Vincent.
I
have a theory. The Mutos are really the good guys. Because if you think about it, that Muto had every right to attack those guys at that plant where his seed was. They tried to electrocute his ass.
So who's the bad guy?
Well, let me get to that. They tried to electrocute.
If you say Godzilla, we'll end this podcast.
Give me a second. Now here he is, just trying to eat, man. He's just trying to get food. Suddenly these assholes come back to attack him. So yeah, he destroys some of Hawaii. Okay, he's pissed off. Okay, but he's trying to be considerate. He's trying to tiptoe around everybody. He doesn't want to disturb people. He doesn't want to scare anybody. You guys keep making him angry, man. He just wants to get food because he wants to reproduce with his loved one, who we will meet later. But they love each other. It's all about love. This is a story of true love that people get in the way of. Not at all.
You know what confuses me most about the Hawaii section of the movie?
Why is Aaron Johnson on the one train that's about to get attacked by a Muto?
No, where's Dog the Bounty Hunter? I mean, Hawaii's getting trashed. Where's the dog?
I'm also a little confused about the Muto's eating habits. I mean, it seems like they're saying that their sole food source is radiation, but that'd be like saying that our food source is oxygen. I mean, they clearly need radiation to live, but they would need more for sustenance. They would need actual food and protein and nutrients. They are animals, after all. And yes, I know I'm putting way too much thought into this, but I'm just trying to be thorough.
Here coming up is a part of the film that really pissed me off. I remember when I first watched it in theaters, I was yelling in rage. So let me take this for a minute here. Okay, so the Muto shows up, it's eating the sub-nuclear reactor, the military starts attacking it, boom, it stomps his claw, creates an EMP, knocks everything out. And next thing you know, Godzilla's coming. They see he's like coming through the ocean. You still can't see him, just like his spine's going through the water. He creates a tsunami coming on land, and people are like the streets are getting flooded, and we kind of finally see Godzilla. You mostly just kind of see like his torso and his one arm, and everybody who just like basically survived a tsunami are up on top of the rooftops, and they're like in awe and amazement at this gigantic being walking in front of you. You're like, oh my god. And you're like, I'm getting revved up. By the way, we're about an hour into the film at this point. We want to point that out. We're about an hour into it. We're about halfway through the film at this point. So you don't completely see Godzilla. Muto chomps or like smashes through the rail that the monorail's on, and the Muto trashes the track. The monorail breaks open, people are falling and dying. Kick-Ass saves a little kid. So the Muto, he's like fucking shit up. He's knocking planes over. Military comes in and tries to attack it, but then the helicopter barely dodges these giant spike things. And then it finally happens.
The foot stomps in.
No, let me take this. This is mine.
Okay.
All right. Camera view from inside the airport. Boom, big lizard-looking scaled foot stomps down, and boom, frontal view. We start at Godzilla's feet, and we go up the legs, panning up, stomach, chest. You see the big arm, and you finally see Godzilla's face, and he looks like a badass motherfucker. He looks like Godzilla's supposed to look like, and then boom, he leans over and lets out this huge, menacing, earth-shaking, window-shattering roar, and you're like, oh, finally, it's about to go down. He's about to fuck this Muto up. He's about to, and then they cut to Elizabeth Olsen trying to put her kid to bed, and you're like, what the fuck? Come on!
Yeah, no,
Why? Why? We've waited a whole hour, and you're not going to show the fight? They show the fight in small, quick clips on CNN. Yeah. And you're only for like 10 seconds at best. Like, you've been... What?
All right, now this is pure...
I was losing it. Why? You bastards. You blew it all up. You bastards. Damn you to hell.
I gotta say, someone that doesn't have a huge background in Godzilla, even I was pissed off. It was kind of like, dude, I paid money to see Godzilla. I've waited an hour to see him. You spent 40 minutes with the Mutos.
One of the big draws of this film, they were going to like, Godzilla's going to fight other monsters in this one. So you're expecting some action. All right? And they cut away.
And then instead of showing us a fight, you show us the aftermath of their fight.
And we, apparently the Muto gets away and Godzilla is in hot pursuit. But the Muto, of course, can fly faster than Godzilla can swim. So it's back to that, and I was so lucky I didn't get thrown out of the theater because I was actually just watching a private employee screening at the theater I work at. So had I been seeing that movie just with the general public just like on a Friday night, they probably would have tossed my ass out of the theater. I was losing it. Oh my God.
In the post-attack city where Aaron Johnson's walking with this little boy, and of course, out of thousands of people, the boy finds his parents immediately. He has served his purpose and his role in the film, which was to just make us invest more care into Ford than we did before. And I'd say that it didn't really work for me because I've seen, plot devicey things like that very often in movies like this, where you have one-dimensional characters. You try to make us care more about them.
Yeah, Kick-Ass Hurt Locker just arrived with the military. And they're going in pursuit.
So now we find ourselves at another military base just outside of Las Vegas.
But they figure out that the other pod that was on the dead monster at the beginning of the film, they thought was dormant, which dormant doesn't mean dead. So I don't know why they were that. Okay, the Muto is calling the other one, so the other one's probably going to wake up. So they're in the bunker, and the whole side of this like small mountain has a hole in it. And they run up and they see the new Muto, the second Muto, which this one can't fly, but it's like 3 times the size of the other one, is heading towards Las Vegas.
It's the mommy Muto.
Yeah, it's a female. Apparently they're gonna boink and make some little Mutos. How did they not notice it busted out the side of a mountain? Things would be shaking. There would be noise.
Well, that's what I was saying before.
How stealthy are these giant monsters? It's like they had like ninja training or something.
How could you have this dormant, not dead, dormant thing and just have nobody around to supervise something like this? This takes us into a second attack on Las Vegas, which we don't get to see.
Oh, it goes into Las Vegas and like it stomps through the ceiling of like a casino. And you think, oh, we're gonna watch this thing like tear up Las Vegas, like we saw Godzilla tear up Tokyo in the original film. And then once again, we're reduced to a few like news clips, and we're like, show me the destruction.
I mean, like, I understand the fact they want to build to the finale. They want the finale to be the signature fight destruction scene in the film. But, the thing is, you got to give us something. You can't just withhold everything until the finale. I mean, even Roland Emmerich did that in the 1998 movie. You can't just tease us. You got to give us something.
Next up, we have what is obviously the most incredible, ingenious, unbelievable strategy ever conceived by the military of the United States of America, in which they decide they're going to use nukes to kill the monsters. It's dumb.
There is so much conjecture in the scene about them theorizing what the motives and intentions are of the monsters and where they're going and what they want. It's like, how does anyone know this shit? But then the thing that's frustrating, of course, about the plan, as you were about to discuss, is that they're going to transport a nuclear bomb on train across country when these monsters are out and about. They're seeking out nuclear, radioactive things. You could have had a submarine in the ocean all the way in San Francisco, where this train's heading, just simply take the nuclear bomb to that city and drop it off. You didn't have to have it so exposed and in danger of an attack. It makes no sense other than to raise stakes for Aaron Johnson's character, to make you think that he could be killed, because there's only one man, only one, who could work this bomb. And his name is Ford Brody, or Kick-Ass Brody.
Kick-Ass Hurt Locker.
Kick-Ass Hurt Locker.
That's
yes.
Because he's a bomb disposal dude.
I mean, it's one thing for the military to be kind enough to give this guy a ride, but then for this guy to go like, hey, I know bombs. Me. It's like, dude, you are one of dozens. You don't matter.
Yeah. He somehow convinces the captain in charge that, like, when was the last time you let your boys put your hands on a live bomb?
I mean, there's got to be a lot of other EOD guys that are equally as qualified to do this job. He's not special, and yet the movie treats him like he's special. They treat him like he's the only one in the world that could do this.
He calls his wife, and instead of telling her to run for her life, get the child out of the city, he tells her to wait for him.
Yeah.
Honey, I want you to wait in the city that I'm transporting a nuclear bomb to, trying to lure mutos, dangerous creatures that will tear the city to pieces, and Godzilla. You stay there and wait for me, instead of running and saving yourself and our child.
Yeah, he says, wait there. I don't know why. I guess maybe he thinks like, oh, he'd get there and he's going to bring them on a military plane and fly them out of there. But dude, it's still going to take they're giant monsters, so they can get places a lot quicker because they take bigger steps. But I don't know. They're still probably going to take a couple of days before they reach the city. So get the fuck out of there.
Yeah,
no one else in the city's going to know.
The motivations don't make any sense.
Yeah.
Everything they say is either exposition or it's things to serve the plot.
I mean, eventually the military notifies the city government of San Francisco that these creatures are on their way, but like he talks to his wife before that even happens. Dr. Serizawa tries to convince him not to use nuclear bombs because, well, right off the bat, one, they're nuclear bombs. If you're ever in a situation where you think you need to use a nuclear bomb, take a second to rethink that. Two, like we said earlier, they tried to kill Godzilla back in the 50s with nuclear bombs, but their excuse is like, oh, this is megatons. This is not kilotons, this is megatons. That bomb was like a firecracker. Yeah. Like, no, it's still a nuclear bomb, all right? I understand they're more powerful by today's standards, but still, if something can survive a nuclear bomb, I don't know, unless you have that Infinity Stone from Guardians of the Galaxy, I don't think anything's going to take it out. I just don't.
So, again, basically nothing that anyone's doing makes any sense, pretty much.
Yeah.
So then we get to the train sequence, which is another beautiful sequence completely obscured by fog, where a Muto attacks the train.
Yeah, it was really cloudy this time of year.
It's always cloudy
across the country.
The way that Gareth Edwards uses fog in this movie is the way that J.J. Abrams uses lens flares in Star Trek. And he just loves. He's like, we need more fog. Pour more fog in there. We're seeing too much of Godzilla. Okay, people will like this too much. Let's make sure he's obscured.
Some fog right here. Let's get it here. Right here. Let's get some fog. Can you see it? You can see kind of his chest. Okay, keep the fog right there. Oh, and we also get to apparently one of the Mutos is now pregnant. We see a little like egg sac on its belly. She's ovulating.
It looks like a ball sack coming down at Kick-Ass's face.
Yeah. You almost get teabagged.
I actually am going to compliment the sequence, at least the build-up of tension. I thought they did a good job. I thought that having them walking the train, the guys down below having the tank hit over them, and you see there's a river filled with vehicles that were destroyed floating down the river. Yes, it does a great job setting it up, and then of course when the Muto springs to life, him stepping over the train tracks over Kick-Ass and stuff. But it's a really well built scene of suspense. It does that very well.
But once again, the monsters sneak up on him. It's dark, and it's night, and there's this weird fog that seems to be following our main character across the globe. But these giant monsters sneak up.
They're very light on their feet.
Yeah, they're seriously. I mean, they're technically black in color, so they can blend into the darkness. But at the same time, it's like you would hear it stomp. Remember in Jurassic Park, the cup of water, the ripples, boom, boom, boom. See what's happening with the camera right now?
Yeah,
that's what should be happening in this movie. right now, but not.
Of course, the sole survivor, you guessed it, would be Kick-Ass.
Yeah.
Everyone dies except him. Everybody.
So this time he survives, and this time they're going to transport the nuke by aeroplane. I don't know why the hell they just didn't do that to begin with now, considering that the train was... never mind.
Then we have a sequence. Elizabeth Olsen's character has an option to leave the city. She has colleagues that are going to get on a bus, and they're going to transport their children out of the city. And she's like, but my husband says he's coming. I have to wait for him.
Her character seems to be an intelligent woman.
Yeah.
At this point, if your husband hasn't arrived yet...
I would say fuck him.
Intelligent woman who's also a loving, caring mother would be like, I can't wait for your father anymore. I'm just going to grab you and we're going to go. Yeah. He'll understand. He's a military guy. He'll survive.
So then we get the primary military guy who asks his people, where is Godzilla now? And I'm thinking, yeah, where is Godzilla now? And, he's still swimming in the ocean, apparently. I almost forgot he was in the movie.
He's coming. Again,
he's coming.
He's getting up there in age. He doesn't swim as fast as he used to. It happens with a lot of guys when they get that old. 15 or 20 minutes past the point where we last saw Godzilla, and we haven't seen him again yet.
We're like about 25 minutes. Whereas the Mutos have been all over this movie. They're all over the place. We're getting so much Mutos that, really this movie should have been called Mutos and Godzilla.
Yeah.
But
yeah, this movie is like having a movie called Superman, and the movie focuses on Jimmy Olsen the whole time, and you barely see Superman. That's what this movie feels like sometimes. There's a bus driver with all these kids on it. They're going. The Golden Gate Bridge. Golden Gate Bridge is basically gridlocked with people trying to either get out of the city or get to shelters. And there's this bus driver. He's got the kids, and then Godzilla appears out of San Francisco Bay, and like the weird thing was like there's all these like military ships waiting, and they're start blasting with cannons and missiles. And for some reason, the missiles are like.
They're out of control.
They're out of control. They're not even hitting Godzilla. I don't know if they're missiles.
They're hitting the bridge. They're hitting cars.
Yeah. And one of the missiles is about to hit the bus load of kids, and then boom, Godzilla just happens to stand up at the right point and it takes the hit.
Yeah, Godzilla's like, let me take a stretch here.
Yeah. Boom.
Yeah.
Aaron Taylor Johnson saves one kid. Godzilla accidentally saves an entire bus full of them.
Yeah, and then right after that, a school bus of children is also saved by its awesome driver, who heroically drives the children out of harm's way.
Somebody's got competition for the top hero spot, is all I'm saying. The bus driver's
bus driver's pretty good. He doesn't even have a name.
And
he's just a bus driver.
He doesn't have a name. He has no character, but he does one of the most heroic things in this entire film.
Yeah. And by the way, that co-worker that Elizabeth Olsen drops her son off with, why? She's not on the bus anymore. All of a sudden, she's gone. It's just the kids and the bus driver. Where are the other adults looking after the damn kids? So anyway, Godzilla smashes through the Golden Gate Bridge. Yeah, so surprise, the Golden Gate Bridge gets destroyed in a movie about giant monsters.
Now, I have to admit that I thought this sequence was cool. I mean, there are cool sequences in this movie. A lot of stuff in the beginning was really cool. The train sequence was cool. Near the end, there's some great fights, which we're getting to. But, it's not all bad. But next, then we find the Mutos going into the San Francisco area. And apparently, none of these scientists or military geniuses had a contingency plan in place for the Mutos' EMP special ability. Like the guy in the boat, he's like, they set off an EMP. It's like, well, dude, don't you know that by now? Don't you have a contingency plan?
Yeah, that shit would be on Twitter at this point, for Christ's sakes, probably.
The whole plan rides on them having this nuke on this boat, and for the boat to take it out into the ocean, and this guy that's like, oh no, the EMP knocked the boat's controls out. I can't transport this bomb out of here now.
Yeah, so the Muto, the first one, the male one with the wings, he flies in, EMP farts the crap out of the Navy, grabs the nuke, and flies into the middle of the city where the big female, the Muto's Eskimo kiss.
Vince, I think this supports my theory that they're actually the good guys.
Fuck. Wait. Well, then what's Godzilla?
Godzilla's just a cockblocker.
Godzilla is the bouncer at the club that is Earth, okay? You ain't getting it.
Mutos, all they want to do is be left alone.
No, fuck them.
Get a little loving going on.
Get all National Geographic special.
But wait, Aaron Johnson and Godzilla are not going to let this happen. We also get the last glimpse we get of Elizabeth Olsen until the very end almost. She, goes down into this underground thing, and and it's very strange because usually in movies when you have family that are in harm's way in a city that's in danger, you do more to establish the fact that they are in harm's way throughout the finale. But this is literally one of two times we see her until the ending. We see her one more time during the final battle where she's cowering for a minute. But it's like, I forgot she was even under there.
So the movie continues on and things are like, they've established that the Mutos have the nuke and Godzilla's fighting the Mutos, but they keep cutting away from it. Once again, we're not seeing the battle between the monsters. Once again, I think, okay, they've built it up this entire movie. They've been building up for an hour and a half, and now Godzilla starts coming at the Muto, and like these doors close. And
right when you're about to see it.
And, like,
Yeah.
damn it! God damn it! You know, so, and then it cuts back to, like, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Ford Brody.
Oh, and of course, we're in another sequence where we're being told why he is the only one who can do this. Now, of course, they actually have a reason this time. He switched out the internal components of the bomb to make it analog so that the EMP couldn't affect it.
Yeah.
So he has kind of redesigned how the bomb's going to function, so it makes sense, I guess, why they bring him this last time.
So he talks to the admiral and the captain and the colonel and the commander or whatever, and they're like, oh, this is the guy. And so, like, the strategy is that we're going to halo jump, like the admiral was in charge of this thing, to ask, like, doctor, is there anything else we can do? Because, not that I want to use the nuke, but it seems like we have to. And he's like, nature has a way to, like, the arrogance of man is thinking that nature is in our control and not the other way around. Let them fight.
Yes, that was a much better impression than what I've got.
I've watched many Japanese films.
It seems like he's also so happy that he can say he's right.
Yeah.
Because the whole movie, even before he had any evidence to support what he was saying Godzilla's here to restore balance to nature. And now finally he's like, I'm right. Go ahead, say it. I'm right.
Yeah.
I was right. He's very proud of himself now.
Yeah, it's like he's waiting. It's like he has a bet with somebody for like $50. And he's waiting for the admiral to say that, yeah, you're right, so he can collect his 50. It's weird. So we move on. They halo jump down, and that sequence is kind of cool.
There's like a moment where they went through one set of clouds, and then they're in between clouds.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that was great.
It looked like, seriously, you could have framed that and made that into a painting on my wall.
That's the first time I've seen we've said it a little bit that we haven't already said it already.
I mean, well, that was for once the fog and everything works. It looks gorgeous.
Yeah.
I have to say.
So,
The only thing that is annoying about it, and Vince pointed this out to me, is that we're being distracted from a fight that's Godzilla's having with the Mutos.
Yeah, we get out of they get out of the clouds, and you kind of see Godzilla and the Mutos fighting, but at the same time, it's crap. So Aaron Taylor Johnson, kick-ass Hurt Locker, lands with the other commandos, and they go looking for the nest that the Mutos have
And you
built.
have more creatures tiptoeing around the area.
Yeah, why am I not, like, as they're running through the city, like, the entire ground should be shaking, which they should be having trouble, like,
what's funny? You even see one thing in the background. One of the Mutos very quickly walks by them in the background.
It's like when, like, cartoon characters are doing that, like, little, like, piano, like, tiptoeing thing, like, like, it's like that.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's like Loki put it, an ant has no quarrel with a boot. All right?
Yes.
These monsters got some big boots, and they're made for walking. And that's just what they'll do.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they find the nest where the bomb is being kept, and the Mutos' eggs, these little baby Mutos, are feeding off the radiation that the bomb is giving off, which I don't know how that would work considering the bomb, they designed those nuclear bombs to be well contained.
Yeah.
And they finally find the bomb, they put it down, and they're about to dismantle it, and they're like, uh-oh, the little hatch on it is stuck. What do we do? Oh, let's run it to the boat. Wait, no, you guys didn't bring any effing tools?
They're trying to pry it open with their bare hands.
Yeah.
Like, we can't get it open. We're going to have to take it out of the city. It's like, you guys didn't come down prepared.
Yeah, we got, like, Aaron Taylor Johnson. He doesn't even have, like, a hammer.
I
He
can
doesn't
see
even have, like, a Phillips screwdriver. Nothing.
I can see him turning to one guy like, Phil, you're supposed to bring the stupid tools. I'm sorry, guys, but I got a little scared jumping out of the halo jump. They did mention, though, that a few of the guys, they said a couple of them didn't make it. So maybe one of the guys that didn't make it from the halo jump was the guy with the tools.
Whatever. No, that's not how they work in the Each one of those guys would have had some kind of tool on them or something. Or at least use your guns to try to, like, blow the hatch off or
something.
But
I could understand them wanting it to get it out of the city, because, like, what if they can't defuse it? They at least want to get it out of the city.
Aaron Taylor Johnson says earlier in the film that it'll take them 60 seconds to disarm the damn thing. And they're like, oh, we only got 27 minutes left. Let's get it. And I'm like, no, just do something. Try.
Very conveniently, what does Aaron Johnson spot? A giant fuel truck. How's this going to come in handy? I'm happy you asked. It is going to be used for a giant explosion. So, how convenient is it that it's in there? But that nest was huge. That nest was like the size of like a small building. It was so big. That fuel tank would not kill every single egg.
Anybody who's who's watched Mythbusters will know that when you have gasoline explode, it is really big and fiery, but the explosion itself is not technically that massive. I
Yeah,
think.
and then this brings about one of the most tragic scenes in the movie. Mommy Muto stops in her big fight with Godzilla to look over.
Yeah, we're actually starting to get some fighting between the monsters where we get to see some of it, but then they destroy the egg sac.
And distract the fight.
Yeah, and they're like, damn it, give me
But
fight.
but I actually felt for Mommy Muto, and then she turns her attention on an aunt, Aaron Johnson, as though,
Yeah.
you did this. But who saves Kick-Ass? None other than our title character, finally. Godzilla.
Yeah, can I take this part?
The fight scene?
Yeah,
Alright.
okay, so Godzilla, so all we really see is a weird blue light, and anybody who's a Godzilla fan like me knows what's happening.
That was really cool.
We start seeing a tail go, the spine go blue, and the blue glowing goes up Godzilla's back, and there he is, and he like sucks in some air and blows atomic blue fire breath all over the Muto, which made me so happy, because in the 1998 film, Godzilla only used fire breath one time, and it wasn't the traditional blue radioactive looking Godzilla fire breath. It just looked like that Godzilla had 4 flamethrowers mounted in its upper jaw, and that was it. This is big, powerful, radioactive, body glowing Godzilla traditional fire breath, and it looks really great. It looks like Smog's fire breath on steroids.
Even people that have never seen a Godzilla film are aware of this. Everyone knows this. So when you see that tail starting to lighten up all around his spine, all the way back to the back of his head, you know it's coming. And, even for someone who's not very familiar with the character, you're like, oh, here comes the fire breath, or energy breath, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, that was a cool scene. I thought that was cool how they built it up. It was cool.
I was excited. I'm like, okay, finally, maybe it's now the fight's going to pick up. Aaron Taylor catches up with the other commandos who are now running this huge nuclear bomb through the city, and they get it out to a boat. Mami Muto's in pursuit while Godzilla fights the flying male Muto, which once again they kind of cut back and forth. But they was cool. Godzilla's fighting the male Muto. They're like grappling and wrestling around. And then one Muto comes up, he circles around, he's flying at Godzilla, and pow! Godzilla tail whips the shit out of him. He goes flying into a skyscraper, and a whole bunch of I-beams from the building pierce the Muto and kill it. That was pretty cool. I like that finisher. Because, back in the day with the old Godzilla films, they couldn't, they had to be careful with these costumes because they intended to make more movies with some monsters, so they could only damage the costumes so much.
Yeah.
So that you never had you rarely ever had a really great monster die in a very gruesome, cool, epic way. Most of the time, the monster just in the old films, the monster just retreated to fight another day or something.
Yeah, it was a cool moment. I mean, the fight in general is really cool. You're waiting the whole movie to get to this point. You're finally getting some of what you paid to see. Like I said, too little too late, but it is cool when it lasts.
I mean, the final fight itself is one of the highlights of the movie, but a few minor issues I had was that sometimes the smoke fog environment didn't always interact with the monsters the way you think it would with their size, and sometimes there's some weird audio choices where you would only hear selected noises like the monsters, but you wouldn't hear a building fall, and sometimes it felt a little weird and off. And the fog just always felt like it was in the way a lot of the time. I mean, rather than enhancing the film's visual palette, like I'm sure Gareth Edwards intended, it instead felt like the fog was just polluting the screen. But then we move into the scene where the military guys are trying to get the bomb on the boat, and Mother Muto, she's so considerate. I mean, she takes a big swipe at the boat and manages to kill everyone on the boat without actually damaging it or sinking it. Thank you, Mummy Muto, for leaving the boat intact that could lead to your destruction. And then we have Kick-Ass, and he's doing his low heroic, I've been through a lot, limp, as he's moving towards the boat.
He gets inside.
He turns on the GPS autopilot for the boat.
Yeah. And that was a really old-looking boat. That looked like the boat from Jaws.
It's the Orca with a new paint job.
Where the final Muto is leaning over him, and Kick-Ass whips out his pistol like that's going to do shit.
Yeah.
And then guess who comes back?
Godzilla. But the way he comes back is weird because all of a sudden, the Muto's about to come down on Kick-Ass, and then boom.
He creeped up.
Yeah, he creeped like the Mutos. All of a sudden, Godzilla's stealthy ninja shit. He's still a giant monster. Not even the audience is aware. We're not aware until Godzilla's already sunk his teeth into the back of the neck of the Muto.
Yeah,
and this is the part of the movie that was really awesome. That to me was totally cool. Godzilla's got his hands, claws around the Muto's head. All of a sudden, the spine starts to glow. You think he's going to fire breath him maybe in the face. No, Godzilla opens up the Muto's jaw and shoots fire breath down the Muto's throat, burning its neck and ripping its head off, and it was awesome.
It was awesome.
That's cool. And the music's like, da-da, da, Godzilla's like, ah, motherfucker.
Yeah.
And then he tosses the Muto's head away, And that was really cool. But then, Godzilla has a long day and he collapses.
Poor guy, he's all tuckered out.
Yeah. The old Godzilla never would have taken a nap. He's like...
But yeah, and then you have Kick-Ass doing the thing where you're like, is he going to come to in time to get off the boat? What? And, they said there was no, extraction plan
for the guys to go stop the nuke. Yeah, a helicopter comes in, picks them up off the boat. The boat goes out into the ocean.
For 5 minutes. It gets 5 minutes worth in a cheap old boat.
Yeah.
And it manages to get far enough away where miraculously no one's harmed by any of the radiation.
The nuke goes off, and they're like apparently far away, which... I mean, maybe they're elapsing for him being asleep or something, but there's only like 5 minutes left.
Yeah, there's only 5 minutes. It can only go as far as 5 minutes can take you.
Yeah, so we cut to the next day where he finds his kid, and they all they end up in the local sports stadium, which all the survivors of the city are being collected in. So it's like it kind of like a nod to Katrina when they put the whole city in the football stadium, and. Eventually, Elizabeth Olsen shows up and the family's reunited.
Yup, it's one of those happy Hollywood endings where everything works out and all the loved ones come together and hug and embrace, and they're going to live happily ever after.
And then here comes the most ridiculous part of the movie. This is ridiculous. Godzilla is, of course, not dead. He wakes up. He's like, oh shit, what happened last night? Where was I?
Godzilla, the Hangover.
Yeah, part 4. Yeah, that would have been a cool scene. So Godzilla gets up, and you see on the jumbotron in a sports stadium, Godzilla's rising up, and the headline is "King of the Monsters, Savior of Our City?" ? And everybody in the stadium's cheering "Yeah,
go Godzilla!"
Yeah, and they play this big inspirational victory music in the background of the movie. And it's just you see Godzilla kind of stomping through the city.
Very proudly.
But no, that's the thing that doesn't make any sense. On the news, they wouldn't praise Godzilla as a hero. He's just another giant monster to them that trashed the city.
When you're in the heart of destruction, you're not separating one monster from the two others. They're all monsters too. They're all dangerous. They're all tearing down buildings. They're all killing people.
Yeah.
And with how many people Godzilla definitely killed, there's no way you would praise him or celebrate him. Maybe years and years later, people would look back on what he did and go, okay, he probably averted further destruction.
Yeah. I mean, it's at the end of Jurassic Park when the T-Rex saves them from the Velociraptors. No, they didn't right before they go out the doors. They're like, "You the man, T-Rex." No, they're like, "Oh well, okay, the T-Rex just happened to help us out." And so Godzilla lets out a huge roar, goes into the water, and he swims off, and the movie ends.
The 1998 Godzilla film, one of the things it was criticized for was thin plot, acting, and poor direction. Whereas this new film was praised for human drama giving substance to spectacle. I have to disagree with that. I think, actually, I think the 1998 criticism applies to this one equally. Edwards claims that the whole cast were all his first choices. And which is interesting because a lot of people auditioned for this movie. Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Man of Steel's Henry Cavill were among them. And Sally Hawkins, who actually played the scientist who accompanied Dr. Serizawa, Ken Watanabe's character, she had a quote where she says that the director comes from performance first rather than how it looks. All the cast, every last one of them are talented actors. All of them are. Great cast. And I think that they all gave it their best considering what they had to work with. Aaron Johnson, man, I've seen you do such good work before, so I'm not trashing you as an actor. I know you can act. The fact that Ken Watanabe, who, by the way, is another very respected actor, the fact that he, too, is very wooden, that says something. It's not just one person who's doing this. There's multiple characters and actors that are very wooden in this movie, and that has to be the fault of, writing and directing. Now, I don't want to totally trash Gareth Edwards' work here, because I do get a sense of his passion in this film. He's got a great eye for visuals. Despite my complaints about the fog, many of the visuals were beautiful. I think that Edwards has the makings of a good director. One day, he may even be a great director. A whole other factor to take under consideration here is that this is only his second movie. With that in mind, he has my respect for attempting to take on a huge challenge like making a Godzilla movie. That said, however, I do feel like there's a lot of problems. And I think the directing focused way too much on visual spectacle and not enough on character drama or story. Apparently, we're in the minority, though, because most critics praise this for being about character drama.
Yeah, this movie seemed to be split a lot with a lot of people, kind of like how Man of Steel was, where a ton of people loved it and a ton of people hated it. We're actually, we're part of the hater
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Final thoughts. Yeah, a lot of parts of the story didn't make sense. Let's throw nukes at the creatures that absorb nuclear radiation. Aaron Taylor, I really never rooted for him. Okay, let me figure out what I thought was good about the movie, and then I'll get to my big final thought. Special effects were great. Good special effects. Godzilla looked like Godzilla. Bryan Cranston was awesome, cool. The movie took things seriously, unlike the '98 version. That was good. Now, my real big final thought. They tried to make Cloverfield 2. That's what this was. They tried to Cloverfield Godzilla. They totally, like, what worked for Cloverfield, like, it wasn't about the Cloverfield monster. It was about the people going through the disaster. In the old Godzilla films and most Godzilla films, there has to be that balance between the human characters and the monsters. Because the human characters have to carry the major plot points of the movie, where the monsters are really just mostly there for the action. Which is not to say there's never been a human character in a Godzilla film that didn't get involved in action. I've seen in the classic Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, where we introduced King Ghidorah, one of Godzilla's biggest monster rivals. There is a cop who's protecting this princess from these assassins, and he's firing his gun off, and they have a run and chase and stuff like that. So yeah, it gives the humans some action to go through. Why not? And involve the military? Of course, the military is going to involve. But when you take so much away from Godzilla, especially since we were hoping for so much these past 15 years since. 16 years since the '98 one, we want to see Godzilla, we want to see him throw down, we want to see him show why he has the title of King of the Monsters, why he will take on any other monster, take him down. We want to see that, but no, they tried to Cloverfield it because Cloverfield, with all respect due to it, I'm not dissing Cloverfield, I'm dissing that they tried to make it like Cloverfield. But real quick, Godzilla would kick Cloverfield's ass. I don't think anyone would argue with me on that. And if you are going to, then go ahead.
My final thought would be that there was a lot of effort put into this movie, and a lot of people worked very hard on it, and it does show in a lot of places. And I don't want to sound as though I think the movie's an utter piece of trash. I think if you look at this movie separate from the rest of the Godzilla films, you would be able to take more appreciation out of it. It would serve a purpose of fun disaster film. So, I would say it was okay. I mean, it could have been so much better with a better focus.
Yeah. Because it was technically a success, Toho has allowed Legendary Pictures the right to use 3 more of their monsters for the next Godzilla film, which is King Ghidorah, which is one of Godzilla's biggest rivals. He's a 3-headed, lightning-spewing gold dragon monster. There's Mothra, which we've spoken about a bunch in this film, which in case you guys haven't figured out, Mothra is a giant moth. And then there is Rodan, the giant pterodactyl monster, which I mentioned briefly earlier. These are really big players. If you were to compare them to famous pro wrestlers, it'd be Hulk Hogan, Macho Man Randy Savage, Undertaker, big names like that. Chances are that because they're taking those 3, what they're going to do is they're going to do a remake of one of the best Godzilla films, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, in which Ghidorah shows up and Godzilla has to team up with other monsters in a final battle to beat Ghidorah, because otherwise Ghidorah is going to devastate the planet. So, if that's...
Hopefully we don't get an hour and a half of Ghidorah and 30 minutes of Godzilla. And if Gareth Edwards is directing again, hopefully he's on a learning curve. Maybe he'll do better next time. I'm going to reserve judgment about Gareth Edwards until I see him direct that Han Solo Star Wars prequel. By the way, I'm very concerned that we're not going to see Han Solo till the last 30 minutes of the movie. And when we do see him, he'll be obscured by fog, and we won't really get a good look at him.
But, I say, with those 3 more big-name monsters, classic Toho monsters, I expect a lot from this one. I expect more fighting. I don't expect the whole thing to be just monsters fighting whatever. Once again, you need that balance between the human characters and the monsters.
Absolutely.
At least show the fighting. Don't do this thing where you're building it up for an hour and 45 minutes just to give us 1-2 good kill scenes. Give me what we want.
Yeah,
and that's just about all I got to say now.
Yeah. And, you made a good point, though, that if you're going to waste so much time with human characters, at least make us give a shit about them. Because
we're not bitter, hateful, angry thing now. I gotta tell them what they fucked up on.
We don't hate everything we see. We don't hate everything we see.
No.
And we want to review something we love next time, just to give you guys a different flavor. So, for now, this is Mike signing off.
This is Vincent Anthony Didiano signing off.
And you've been watching
Review of the
Nerds.
Take it easy, people.
Have a good night.